Alright YouTube, this is Bill Surf Addict, and tonight I'm going to be redoing my video on converting 9mm parabellum brass to the 9x18 Makarov brass. Apparently my upload of the video was corrupted, so I'm going to redo this and hopefully it will be a good upload. Alright, so the first thing I want to make sure everybody knows is that this is for informational purposes only. This is what I do, this is what I use. That doesn't mean that it's the correct procedure or the correct thing to do. Make sure you follow your own guidelines. You do your own research and determine if whether or not this is appropriate for you. So this is for informational purposes only. Alright, so the first thing we need to do is to make sure that what I do is I get a bunch of 9mm parabellum brass, and I buy mine in the bulk from my local range, and I get a really good deal on it. Alright, so what we do have here is we have 9mm parabellum brass. Alright, this is a 9x19 millimeters. Okay. And the first thing that I do is I just take a look and make sure the brass is at least in good shape from the exterior and do a close inspection of it. Is there any cracks, any chips, any splits, dings or dents that may contribute to a bad load. So this one here looks pretty good. I'm using my Lee Challenger die set with a Lee Makarov dies. Okay. First thing we need to do, since this is shot brass, is we need to deprime it. And one of the major differences, there's a couple of them between the two types of brass, the 9x19 and the 9x18, is that the Makarov brass is a straight walled brass, straight walled round, whereas the parabellum brass has a angle on the brass itself. So when we run it through the full-length sizing die right here, it accomplishes the two things. What it does is it deprimes, decaps the piece of brass, as well as it also straightens the walls out on this piece of brass. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do that. Run it through. Very, very easy to do. Straight through, all the way down. It deprimes your brass and puts a straight wall on your piece of 9x19 9mm parabellum brass. Okay. All right. The second thing we need to do is we need to trim this piece of brass. All right. Now, one thing you need to understand is that I use the Lee ball trimmer and the Lee ball or the Lee brass, the trimming dies for it. Okay. The bullet diameter for the Makarov is actually larger than the 9x19 parabellum brass, parabellum round. So you might have to widen the neck on this piece of brass in order to get your trimmer to fit and to be able to trim this piece of brass. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and show you how I do it with the trimmer, and hopefully this will work, and I won't have to run it through the neck sizer, so, or the mouth sizer. So alright, so here we go. Here's the Lee ball trimmer right here. This is set with the Makarov length gauge. Alright. And luckily, it does fit. These were shot brass, so they swelled in that 9mm a little bit. So it does have enough room for you to get your trimmer in there. Sometimes, if it's new brass, I don't know why you'd be cutting down new 9mm brass, but you could. You may have to widen that neck out a little bit with your die set. So, Alright, so what we need to do is we need to trim this by 1 millimeter. That is the length difference between the 9 millimeter Parabellum and the 9x18 Makarov. So I use, like I said, I chuck the old holder into my handy dandy drill, just like this, and I use my ball trimmer, and what we do is we essentially trim off 1 millimeter of brass from this piece of 9x19. So basically what we have right now chucked into this drill, which was formerly a 9x19 Parabellum brass, is now a 9x18 piece of brass. We need to clean it up and do a couple more things before it's really a Makarov brass, but right now it's at the proper length. What I do is I go ahead and I deburr it and I chamfer it, okay? Or chamfer and deburr, whichever you want. Okay. Now, as you can see again, I'll show you the difference. Here is your 9x18 alongside the converted 9x19 Makarov. If you see the length difference there, that is the amount right here. That's the new one that we just trimmed out. Now, what I do is I rerun this through my full-length sizing die again. Because we cut off the 1 millimeter length, I like to go ahead and run it up through it again, just to make sure that we have the walls straight, that this piece of brass is going to work properly. So, there you go. That's what it is. It's a very easy conversion. The only thing you need to do is trim it off by 1 millimeter and run it through your full-length sizing die in order to straighten those walls out. And now you can go ahead and you can reload as normal. Okay, small primer, the load that you choose, and I use a Lee mold Makarov round like this. A little dark because it has A-locks on it, but this is what I load this with. Okay, so I have done this. I have two Makarovs. I have a CZ82 and I have a Polish P83. Both of these two weapons love this round. There is, functionally no difference between the Parabellum brass and the Makarov brass once you trim it down and make it a Makarov brass. The only problem is that you need to make sure is that your Makarov brass is going to say 9mm Parabellum on it. So if you reload 9mm Parabellum and you also reload your Makarov, you need to be really careful and make sure that you keep these two pieces of brass separate and distinct. What I do, and it's not necessarily the best method, but it works for me, is I use a Sharpie right here, and I black marker Sharpie my Makarov brass, and I red Sharpie my 9mm brass, just in case I may miss a Makarov once in a while marking it. I want to make sure both of them are marked. It's not a foolproof method, but it does save a lot of headache. You don't want to get those two mixed up. Okay. And if you're wondering why I use a Sharpie and not something more permanent, like say a paint or some sort of nail polish or something like that, believe it or not, I tried that, and the thickness of the drying compound, like the nail polish or a epoxy, or like not a latex paint, but an enamel paint or something like that, is enough to where it's very difficult to load this cartridge into your handgun. So I use the Sharpie, and that works just great for me. So if you have any questions, please feel free to respond and let me know how this new video works for you guys. Okay? Thanks again. This is Milsurf Addict signing off.